Okay, so we're still waiting for quite a few people at this time, but we'll kick off anyway, because it's already after 10:30. So we'll just quickly go through how to use the software first of all, and then we'll introduce ourselves. So well done on all managing to actually enter the room and first obstacle over. So if you go to the bottom of your screen, you'll be able to see some buttons. There is a participant button. If you click that, you'll be able to raise your hand. So if you want to say anything, you can put your hand up. I'll be able to see that, and then later on we can unmute you and you'll be able to talk. There's also a chat facility. So again, at the bottom of your screen, if you click the chat box, it will bring up the chat. You can type in your message and send that. You can either send that to everybody, which is what it's set to at the moment, or you can then send it just to the specific person that you want to send it to. So you can start typing in the name, or you can scroll down the list and choose the person. As we go through, we'll be hearing from different speakers. If you've got any questions at any point, put it into the chat box, and then we can come back to it later at the allocated time for questions and discussion. Okay. If you find that you lose internet connection at all, go back to your email, click the link that you clicked to get in here, and I'll be able to let you back in. So that shouldn't be too much of a problem. So I think I've got anything else to say for this? Okay, if you want to change between the view of which you see people, in the top right-hand corner, you can switch between gallery and speaker view. So you can either see everybody, or you can just click and see the person that's speaking at the moment, and they'll come in your screen in the big box. Okay, so we'll just go around and do some introductions in a moment, but first of all, I'll just bring up the agenda for today. So you should all be able to, ooh, hang on. My computer is totally crashed, and this is a really bad timing for it to have done this. I have no idea if people can still see me or hear me.
Vanessa,
my computer.
Yeah, we can still hear you and see you, and we've got the developing a strategic mindset up on the screen at the moment.
Right, my computer's completely crashed. I can see absolutely nothing. Kemal, do you want to just take over for now while I try and fix this?
Okay, sure.
If you could maybe go through like the agenda and introduce yourself.
Sure. So hopefully everyone can see this on the screen. I've got it in front of me. But so the agenda from 10:30 to 10:40, we've got the welcome and introductions whilst Vanessa sorts out her IT. And then we're going to hear from Ian Williams, who's the director of Caplor Horizons, who many of you will have met. I've now lost the agenda on from my screen. Vanessa? Yes. Okay. So, and then after, and Ian's going to talk about what we mean by strategy and developing a strategic mindset. Then there's going to be an opportunity between 10:55 and 11:05. Timings may have changed a little bit for a question and answer discussion. And then I'm going to say just very briefly 5 minutes about how we've applied strategy to our Leading in the Library project that many of you will have been involved with. And then between 11:10 and 11:30, we're going to hear from people from Carlig, Cool, Klisk and Zulk, the 4 consortia that are partnering in this project, talking about the strategic lessons that they've learned during the Leading in the Library project. There'll be another Q&A session at 11:30 until 11:45. And then Lorna Pearcey from Caplor Horizons, who again many of you will have met during phase 1, will be talking about taking strategy off paper and into action. And then Vanessa's going to close with a closing poll and farewell. So that's the agenda. And just by way of an introduction, my name is Kemal. I think I've met many people before. I have been working with INASP for just over a year now. I'm in the Research Access and Higher Education team with John Harl and Anne Powell and Vanessa. And we've been working very closely on this Leading in the Library project. And I'm delighted to be part of this webinar series, and delighted to be working with Caplor Horizons and our consortia partners. I will just hand over now to Ian to introduce himself and others at Caplor Horizons.
Do you want to swap it?
Sorry.
We can hear you now.
Hello, everybody. So we're from Caplor Horizons. Myself, Ian Williams, with Jean and Lorna here. So a lot of you will know Lorna and myself. So what we're going to do is just share a strategy presentation with you, and I'll be talking through that now. So if we could just bring it up. Great. So can I have a few nods if people can see that? Yeah, good. Okay, great. Okay, so this it follows on from our first webinar, which was called Developing an Entrepreneurial Mindset. So this one is Developing a Strategic Mindset. And the third webinar, which we will be doing, which will be coming up in May, will be Developing a Gender Balanced Mindset. So in terms of developing a strategic mindset, then the first point, I suppose, is to address, well, what is strategy? And you can see an image in front of you, which many of you will be familiar with from working with you in different countries. But strategy is often considered as a journey. So a journey from one place to another place. And in this instance, we have an horizon with a sun, and in between an island, and in the corner a starting point. And you can see there also a ship. So why all that metaphor, if you like, but journeys of individuals, of teams, of organizations are such that you think of a destination, a vision of where you want to get to, and a strategy of how you want to get there. So we'll be talking through a few more definitions of what strategy is, and then I'll talk more about, well, how do you develop that strategic mindset? Okay. Oh.
I have no idea what happened. Trying.
Go down. Okay, as you're listening to this, can you nod again if you can see a traffic lights? Oh, great, good, it's all working still. And if you can think as you're hearing this, well, so what? What for me as an individual or the team I work with? Is there anything that we might stop doing as a result, that we may do, or that you will do? So thinking about how you might apply any of this that you're hearing. So that's the point of the traffic light slide. As we talk about strategy. So next slide. So this slide is to just basically make sure we bottom out, well, what is strategy? So there's millions of words being written about strategy and leadership and so on, and many definitions of strategy. So here's a definition of strategy that I particularly like. So this one is how an organization in its entirety best directs itself in a changing world. And so that's quite a good one, because I think many strategy definitions don't piece everything together in the way that this one does, because it talks about the process of change internally and externally, and that idea of directing on a journey. To the side, oh, we could go back a bit too fast. So just there on the side of the PowerPoint side, you've got another, again, very simple way of thinking about strategy. So when strategy is formed, you can think of, well, an organization has to think internally what's going on within the organization, externally take into account external considerations. So that might be done by different tools, like a SWOT analysis is very common, a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So you might do all sorts of different exercises to understand the internal and external realities. But that's analysis, and you want a synthesis of that to come up with a longer term and a shorter term view on the way forward. So the longer term view can be as far ahead as 10 or 30 or even more years. Some organizations look even further ahead than that. And then you tend to have a practical strategy period, which tends to be 3 to 5 years. And then most organizations have an even shorter plan and budgeting period of more 12 months. So the nearer you are in terms of the destination, if you like, of the, say, the next 12 months, and the greater the level of detail, whereas the further away, the greater the level of dream, if you like. And in terms of that, again, that analogy of the ship with the person looking to the future at the top of the ship, then again, you're looking far ahead for a vision, mission, values, and things that will be enduring. Whereas at the other end of the scale, the plans are much closer to the current reality. So that's, if you like, defining what strategy is. And I like to think that that's about as simple as it gets. I was very fortunate to study a PhD in strategy, and all the years since, I don't think it gets more complicated than that. So that's a nice, simple way of thinking about strategy, and keeping things simple and yet engaging is how we try to work within Capital Horizons. So now we need to talk about, well, how do you develop a strategic mindset? If that's what strategy is, how do you develop a strategic mindset? So again, can we all nod if we can see strategy in red? Great, I've got some very helpful people. So what we're going to do, it's all on one sheet here, but before the webinar, Vanessa shared around a paper which was written by someone within Capital Horizons called Professor Sharon Turnbull, who works with many different universities internationally, but she also contributes to Capital Horizons. And that paper is distilling lots about strategy. And on the final part of that strategy paper, you'll get this, if you want more explanation about this idea of developing a strategic mindset around the word strategy, then there's more in that paper. However, just at a sort of a summary introduction level, if you like, to this, and we can discuss the points all together, then the first point there is a second curve. So it's one thing to understand what strategy is, but what do I mean by a second curve? So you can see next to it, this is something from the New Zealand All Blacks. The New Zealand All Blacks are a very impressive international rugby team. They tend to be winning over and over again in an enduring way. And they have a saying that at the top of your game, you need to change your game. Don't wait before you've started, before things have got, before things start to go downhill. So on that slide, you can see on the right-hand side a diagram with growth and time. And basically, with that diagram, what you can see at the curve, and that's hence the second curve, there's a dotted line and a bold line. But when anything starts, a new strategy, a new product, a new initiative, a new service, whatever organizations are doing, whether they're governmental organizations, institutions, non-profits or businesses, there's always a period of starting up something, which is investment. And actually, that's a period where things, sometimes productivity and morale, confidence can actually go down. You use up lots of resources, and then things start to go really well. And you can see how the climb curve, the curve has a nice straight line of productivity and performance. And then, of course, if you don't, however, whatever it is in life, even empires historically over hundreds of years sometimes, but there's a period of decline. Even in the most successful things can end up declining unless you're smart about thinking about the future. And here you can see where the dotted line comes in. And when things are going really well, and then you start to dig deep and try to invest and come up with that second curve of new ideas, new strategies for the future. So developing a strategic mindset, this idea of a second curve is the first idea, and please ask questions if that's not clear, but certainly from our work with different consortia, then it's come through how in Uganda, in Ghana, in Zimbabwe, you've already adopted that in the past, and we've been stimulating thinking about that, how you think about reinventing yourselves in a timely way so that things continue to grow very positively. So this idea of a second curve is by particularly by someone called Charles Handy, who's a management guru. So the next one is a T, and that's we call it the Capital House roof. Now we put that there because many of you, not in Kenya, but in the other countries certainly, have all become familiar with the Capital House. Now we've done different exercises where you'll understand the rooms of the house in terms of your own behavioural preferences, but there's a foundation and a roof to the house. And the roof to the house, we like to think about sustainability and a sustainable long-term future. And if you can think of many different types of course, of roofing on houses, and that might be plain sheet tins or tin roofs or just ordinary tiles in different countries, then for effectively to stop the rain coming through, those tiles need to overlap. And if they don't overlap, then the rain is going to come through. And quite simply, when we think about sustainability, we like to make sure that as well as thinking about financial considerations, which are often to the fore in organizations, because you have to think about survival, you have to think also about planetary considerations and people considerations. So thinking about sustainability in a holistic way is critical to strategy. So we believe that developing a strategic mindset in a responsible, ethical, long-term way means having a sustainability approach integrated into your strategy process. Okay, so the third one that we've got there is red ocean and blue ocean. So some of you may have heard of this before. It's a notion internationally about strategy that's very popular, and it's quite a simple idea. So you may think red ocean, blue ocean, what's Ian talking about now? But a red ocean is simply the idea that in a red ocean there might be lots of fish and sharks and lots of competition effectively by everybody practically falling over themselves with activity. So the red being effectively like a red flag. Be careful if you go there where lots of other organizations are going, because it can be very, very difficult. Whereas the idea of a blue ocean is that you've found some strategic territory, if you like, or a strategic approach to your work that is actually free of other competition, that there aren't lots of other organizations around, that it's a relative niche, if you like. And so therefore often it's considered, when people are thinking about a strategic mindset, is to have an approach whereby you're not just doing what everybody else is doing. Can you think about how you can offer something that is different? How can you think differently about something to truly deliver something that's really needed and in a space where others aren't? So that's all about really trying to ideally do things that others aren't doing, because that's one of the easiest ways to have a successful strategy. It's much harder to be successful if you're competing and doing lots of things that other organizations are doing. And of course, in the world of international development, sometimes there aren't enough organizations perhaps providing water in different countries or whatever, but you also still have to be very much aware of what other bodies are doing so that you can make the biggest difference possible. So the next one is analysis and synthesis. And I've got there, avoid paralysis by analysis. So this is a famous idea by someone called Henry Mintzberg. And what he says is that a lot of organizations, when they're thinking about strategy, they will spend an awful lot of time with analysis, and more analysis. And you can remember on the previous slide, I said where organizations will think about their internal world and their external world. And they spend too long pondering over all of that and not enough time actually bringing it together. So you can imagine that the idea of bringing it together requires a creativity and an insight, and sometimes that's quite difficult, but it does need to be prioritized, because otherwise people get stuck. And actually there's a great dynamism by not becoming too enmeshed with an analysis, but rather making strategy emerge as you go along. So the basic idea here to developing a strategic mindset is not to be stuck in any way, but to keep thinking, okay, things are changing. How can we take into account those changing things? Let's not get paralyzed. Let's keep being relevant. Let's keep moving. So the next point is T for the Caplor House Foundation. And again, many of you will be familiar with that. But for those who aren't, particularly in Kenya, then we have at the bottom of our Caplor House, which is an organizational development model I mentioned earlier, at the bottom of this house is the idea that the house is built on strong foundations. And that strong foundation we like to consider is learning. And learning is so important that you keep learning in all sorts of different ways if you're going to have a truly strategic mindset. The next one is to engage with others and be collaborative. And this is something where obviously the consortiums that we've met in different countries, the whole nature that you collaborate is very inspiring. And you're doing that very often with remarkable kind of voluntary contributions from in different ways. And often there's a saying sometimes that you can collaborate to compete. And in this sense, when you're thinking of the consortiums, you're trying to compete almost for people's minds or their hearts, and you're trying to get an idea and to try and get it taken up or change a policy or get services to different universities. So that the power of collaboration in a complex changing world is very, very important. And so engaging with others and thinking how you can be collaborative is very central to developing a strategic mindset. The next one, golden seed. When Lorna speaks at the end, we will go through some ideas about how you convert strategy into action particularly, and the very final part of this presentation will be something around the golden seed, and repeating this message because we think perhaps it's the most important of all the things that we will contribute in terms of developing a strategic mindset. So a golden seed is an idea again by Charles Handy, and he says, do the best at what you're best at for the benefit of others. And the question all the time is, are we doing what we're best at? And it's a strengths-based approach to think, and we've adopted this in Uganda, in Zimbabwe, and Ghana, where we start off with thinking about the strategy all the time about, okay, what are we really good at? What are we good at as individuals? What are we good at as a team? What are we good at as an organization? What's our golden seed? What's that very special thing that we have that we can contribute to the world? And that's the idea of do the best at what you're best at for the benefit of others. And certainly that benefit to others is something that the consortiums do remarkably well in terms of this altruistic contribution of volunteers in such a positive way. So the last one is yes, we can. So that's really all about being positive. In terms of developing a strategic mindset, it's very, very, if you read about successful entrepreneurs in any sector, whether that's the non-profit sector internationally or the business sector and so on, often people have a great resilience about being positive and developing a strategic mindset. It's about making sure that you as an individual are looking after your well-being, your health, about looking after the team's health and well-being. If you're not feeling in a sense of positivity and being optimistic about the future, then the very best strategy in the world won't get turned into action because you won't have that can-do attitude. And many of the challenges in the different countries that Leading in the Library is working within, there are very big challenges indeed, and that's why certainly, I mean, it doesn't take much for us to have seen in the different countries what a tremendously positive mindset already exists, but it's critical to having that strategic mindset, being very positive, and that yes, we can do it type of attitude rather than no, I'm not very sure. You know, it's got to be very positive. So that comes to the end of the input that I was going to give, Vanessa. And shall I hand back to you or Kemal if we've lost Vanessa?
I'm still here. It's okay. I've managed to restart my computer and rejoin. So if we've got any questions at that point, could you either raise your hand by clicking the participant button and then raising your hand, your virtual hand, not your actual hand, or write a question in the box, in the chat box. If everyone's happy, we can just carry on, but I'll just wait a few seconds to see if there's any comments or questions from anybody. No, doesn't look like there is. Okay, so in that case, we will move on to the next item on our agenda, which will be Kemal, who's going to talk to us about how we've applied strategy to the Leading in the Library work and where we've got so far with this. So Kemal, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thanks. Thanks very much. I'm just going to share my screen. Can everyone see that? Could you nod if you can see that? Brilliant. Thanks for reciprocating the nodding in. So what I'm going to do is just use this 5 minutes to pull out 5 points from the paper that Ian was talking about earlier, that was written by Professor Sharon Turnbull. And in that paper on page 4, if anyone's got it, there's about 8 points that Sharon mentions where she talks about the benefits of engaging in a strategic planning process. And I'm going to pull out 5 of those points. And because I'm talking about how we've applied strategy to this piece of work, our Leading in the Library project, what I'm going to do is illustrate some of those points by pointing to some of the work that we've done in our latest phase 1 visit, which was to Zimbabwe. And on the screen in front of you, you can see a Spark page that we put together giving participant feedback on our phase 1 trip to Zimbabwe. and it includes a number of photographs and comments from people who took part in that. So I'm just going to use that as a way of kind of illustrating some of the points. So the first point that Sharon talks about in her Essentials of Strategy paper is, one of the good things about engaging in a strategic planning process is that this process will make you take time to step out of your day-to-day operational work to reflect on where the organisation is now and where it needs to be. The time taken to reflect, Sharon says, is fundamental for successful organisations and leadership. So really it's an opportunity to step outside of your day job, step outside of what you do on a day-to-day basis, and engage in a period of self-reflection to think about how the organisation, where it is now, how it could be stronger in the future, and to really sort of take a deeper dive into that strategy process. And as you can see, from this initial photograph that we've got here, it's a room full of people engaging in conversation with each other about strategy, but it's not a kind of a dry and dull process where everyone is poring over 52 strategic objectives. It's actually people having fun whilst they're engaging in strategy and strategic thinking and strategic development. And it's reminded me of that point that Ian makes about, the final point that he makes about, yes, you can, the importance of positivity. And this photograph really exudes that sense of positivity. And some of the other photographs that we've got show people stepping outside of their day job. Everyone who are volunteers for the consortia, they all have their day jobs, whether it's head librarians in universities, whether it's taking part in research institutes, directing research institutes. Everyone has their day job, and it's really important to step outside of that and and use that space to think creatively about strategy. And in Zimbabwe, that's exactly what we did, and we've also done it in Ghana, and we've done it in Uganda through the Leading in the Library process. And you can see people in these photographs doing exactly that, having fun, but thinking about strategy and strategic planning. The second point that Sharon mentions is it's great to engage in the strategic planning process because the process will make you communicate with your colleagues. Strategy processes are rarely done by a single individual working alone. Indeed, strategy development is an excellent reason to bring together the top team in a creative thinking exercise. And again, this photograph here is an example of, in Zimbabwe, as we have done in Ghana and Uganda, we ran the Best Berries exercise, which was a sort of a creative piece to help people think through organizational culture and the importance of organizational culture for delivering strategy. And everyone got their chance to be part of the board, the Best Berries company boardroom, and I think that conveys a sense of the top team getting together to engage in this creative process to think through strategy. And here are just some of the comments that were made by people from Zimbabwe as a result of that phase 1 visit. And these are different feedback that we received at the end of the 2 days that we were together. It was excellent, fun and involving, and the facilitators made us feel comfortable to naturally air our views. I'd like to thank INASP and members from Caplor Horizons. The facilitators were not just good, they did a brilliant job. Enlightening and educative workshop, fantastic educative. And this comment here I think is really important. Zulka's indeed rediscovered itself through this workshop. So it's that chance to sort of step outside of the day-to-day business, and self-reflection enables a rediscovery of self of the organization. So an excellent way of bringing together the top team to engage in this creative thinking exercise. The third point that Sharon talks about is by working as a strategic team, the spin-off is that you will learn more about each other, the aspirations and needs of the different functions within the organization, and the different skills and perspectives in your team. And this will help you to build trust and understanding. And that's exactly what we did with the Caplor House, which is the exercise that Ian was talking about earlier, which many of you will remember is about helping individuals and organizations to understand thinking preferences. The 4 rooms, the observatory, the family room, the library, the kitchen, everyone got to think about which rooms they were most comfortable in, but also what was necessary for them to move rooms, which was really important for a leadership function and really important for an organization, and also for an organization to recognize where the different skills and thinking preferences sat within that organization and how that team could come together. And I think that reflects this point that Sharon is making about the different skills and perspectives in your team, and that's what we've done through the Caplor House. The other point that Sharon talks about is point 7 in the paper, which this process can encourage you to examine your assumptions about your competitors, partners, customers, employees, and other stakeholders. So we did a number of exercises during the Learning Lab to encourage people to challenge their assumptions, one of which was this seeing the point exercise, which many people, including myself, as Lorna will attest, found quite difficult and at times frustrating. But what was great was that sort of real resilience. Everyone pushed through and really put their best efforts into thinking differently. And that was as an entry point to having discussions about how the consortia manages to challenge assumptions and question some of its sort of deepest beliefs and ideas, which is really important for the strategy process. And here are 2 nice photographs from Zimbabwe, one of which is the seeing the point exercise. The other exercise that we did was the animals exercise, encouraging people to envision what animal they currently are and what animal they might like to see themselves in a few years time. And you can see here Jasper working on his he said it was a rabbit. Many people said it was a donkey, and Jasper got quite a lot of stick for his rabbit. But the point behind that was that the rabbit is an agile creature, that it is collaborative, that it's intuitive. So this was Zulk really thinking about, strategically, it's important for us to be agile, it's important for us to be intuitive. But in the end, Zulk didn't go with the rabbit. They went with a buffalo because they felt that the rabbit slept too long. And also they'd heard that Khalid had gone with a sea eagle and Kul had gone with a wolf. So I think they felt they wanted to be a slightly bolder animal in the end. And then the final point that I want to mention is Sharon talks about the strategy process can be highly creative and inspiring. It can reconnect you to your vision, mission, purpose, and values. And that's one of the things that we have done through the Leading in the Library project. And as you can see, I'm just going to scroll through here. In all of the 3 countries that we've worked with so far, one of the key things that we've done is to work over 2 days to try and sort of lift the vision and think differently about vision, mission, and purpose. So these were the sort of words that people at Zulk came up with around vision. They were talking about being committed to a world in which knowledge is valued, the mission to innovate and inspire so researchers can contribute to sustainable development, and a purpose to enable access, sharing, and use of information with integrity. And that was at the heart of the strategic process, and why it was really important. It enables an organization to reconnect with the things that they care about at the deepest level. And I think that is what we've been trying to do through the Leading in the Library project, is to enable consortia to connect to those things that really drive them, that really motivate them, not just as an organization, but also as individuals. So I think I will stop there because I've probably used up my 5 minutes, and just say hopefully that's helped to illustrate how some of the important things that Sharon was talking about in her paper we have been doing through our Leading in the Library work. So back to Vanessa now. Bye.
Okay, thanks very much, Kemal. In fact, you're perfectly on time, so no problems there. I think then we will move on anyway to hearing from our partners. So we've got 3 people who said that they would be quite willing to talk about the lessons that they've learned during the strategy process in their respective countries. So if I can maybe ask to speak to Edward from Zulk, first of all, if he'd be happy to talk to us. Let me just find, oh, yeah, oh. Edward, can you speak and just see if we can hear you? Oh, hang on. Edward, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Ah, perfect. Yes, we can hear you. So if you've got 5 minutes just to talk to us about the key lessons or insights that you have from the strategy process at Zilk, that would be fantastic.
Thank you very much. I would like to say that there were so many takeaways from the workshop that we had for the 2 days. And the first and foremost was the use of the Caplor house metaphor that has just been described, which actually, in our view, allowed us to actually look at the skills, the characters, the characteristics of the persons that form the team. It allows the leader to ideally and appropriately task members so that at the end of the day, a task can actually be completed on time and effectively. And I thought that was a very good takeaway in terms of delegating tasks on teams in order to achieve results. And then the other takeaway was to do with, yes, the games and puzzles. Oh, those were actually fantastic because we found that it was exercising the mind all the time and the energy levels were very high. There was never a time in the room when people were asleep. We were always participating. And I thought that was quite a good way of infusing play, fun, and you always, at the end of the day, achieve to get the most out of people because they are not tired. And the last thing I would want to say that the whole workshop, the way it was conducted, enables us to actually revisit and reconnect, as Kemal was just saying, reconnect with what we thought we were or where we said we had not done enough. We realized that out of the 100, out of our old strategy, we'd actually done 60%. And yet we still had 2 years to go. But then we realized, we said, oh guys, let's stop and re-strategize. And we came out with a very beautiful strategy, the mission, and with all that, we were able to actually revisit our role to our institutions. And we realized we were quite relevant to our institutions. And in all the exercise, the 2-day workshop, there was one thing that I observed personally was engagement, where everyone actually participated. And the result was that everyone was aware of what was supposed to be done and how we were going to do it and the kind of results that we expected. And that actually reflected or motivate on commitment of all members. I think that's all I would say I really took away from that workshop. Thank you very much. I hope I was on time.
Yeah, that was perfect. Thanks so much, Edward. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think without further ado, we'll also go on to Arnold at CLISC. So let me just mute Arnold. So Arnold, we should be able to hear you now. If you want to try speaking.
Oh, hi.
Hello.
So, yes, so I'm Arnold Mwanzu from CLISC. I had been asked by the chair of CLISC, who's Professor Kavulia, to just share on some of the insights that CLISC has been undertaking in the strategic development process. So far, CLISC actually has a strategy, that 5-year strategy, 2014 to 2019. And some of the things that CLISC has been involved in is actually to actualize the strategy. We were lucky enough to get a grant to actually have, I think right now we've had 4 workshops. And the first one was mainly looking at strategy development. And I think during that workshop, the participants who were mainly the executive and the committee, rather working group members, were able to share and internalize the strategy that has already been developed. And then some of the facilitators, because we actually, CLISC managed to get facilitators who are well, versed in the field of strategy development. I think there were 2 lecturers, and they were able to actually interrogate our strategy and advise us, because we already have a strategy, but now we were trying to look at how we can make it better, because now the next strategy would be 2019 5-year strategy, but we've already started looking at how we can improve our current strategy. And if I can just share my screen, these are an implementation plan that CLISC has for the strategy. So some of these things have already been, is everybody able to see it? Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so, okay, let me just go down. Okay, I'll just rush through. Some of them have actually already been actualized, because as you can see here, we're at 2017, and the main one would be capacity building. And as I've said earlier, we've actually been able to have up to 6 or so workshops to actually help empower the members of CLISC, and I think that's part of strategy. And then, of course, adapting technologies. I think almost all member libraries in the consortium have adopted technology like repositories and so on and so forth. So as you look at the plan, I think the implementation mainly has CLISC has been able to come up with the working committees. And as you can see, the working committees are the ones that actually implement the strategies. So we have around 6 committees, and we have a legal framework committee, fundraising and advocacy committee, and ICT and so on and so forth. So the different strategies have been given to the different committees to actually bring them to completion. And so far so good. And we really owe this to INASP, especially for the grant that we got of around 20,000 USD that helped us to come up with the several workshops. So yeah, although CLISC has not been involved in the workshop that we're being talked about, at least on our side, we've been able to try and develop our strategy. So yeah, I think that's what I can say about CLISC. And fortunately, we have one of our executive members attending. She's here, Dr. Victor, and she was among the people who developed the strategic plan. So she could correct me if I'm wrong in any way. Yeah, so I think that's it from me.
That's great, Arnold. Thanks very much. I think we've just had a couple of questions popped in the box from Dan, who is one of the advisors from Caplor Horizons, who went recently to Uganda with myself. And he was asking about are there actions that the senior executive team could use to achieve quick wins? For example, ideas for empowering and involving people, delegating tasks such as setting up subcommittees and agreeing action and work in between formal gatherings. Do you have anything like that at CLISC?
Sorry, come again?
So if you look in the chat box, I'll just read it again. Dan was asking if there are any actions the senior executive team can use to achieve quick wins. So ideas for empowering people, involving people, delegating tasks.
Yeah, actually, CLISC is deeply involved in that, and they actually have. That's why we have this working group, because you'll find that most of the working groups have involvement from, librarians from all our member libraries. We have up to, I think, 80 members, and the representatives actually are mainly either the librarians, or if maybe the librarian finds somebody whom they can identify to represent and to actually contribute towards CLISC. So it's part of succession planning, and it's also part of empowering. And I think that's one of the strategic objectives that CLISC has used to actually make CLISC, the strategy achieved. So yes, we have that, and I think it's part of the strategy, and it's actually being achieved as you speak.
Okay. That's great. Thanks, Arnold. I think everyone was really grateful for that. If you could perhaps share that document afterwards, that would be fantastic. And similarly, from everyone else, if we could share the strategy documents that we've come up with between the consortium and this project, if nobody has any problems with that, then that would probably be quite useful for everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, carry on, Arnold, if you had.
Yeah, I just forgot to mention the last workshop that actually CLISC organized was an advocacy workshop. So, we actually have a working group doing fundraising and advocacy. And since advocacy is one of the key things in the strategic plan, we were actually able to develop now an advocacy framework. Now that's different. So that we have the strategic plan going on, and then we have an advocacy framework that is aligned to the strategy. So basically, what that does is we are trying to to advocate both within our institutions and through partners and collaborations, so that as we can actually be able to sustain CLISC after our partners like INASP and IFL now let us to to be on our own. So I just thought it would be important for me to mention that. Okay, all right.
Okay. In which case we'll move on and maybe speak to Teresa if she's happy. So Teresa, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, hello. Sorry to put you on the spot and just ask if you can talk to us about colleague. I hope you don't mind. Just some sort of key insights that you had from the last Leading in the Library session and from redeveloping your strategy. That would be fantastic if you could share anything like that.
Yes, in fact, I was trying to, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Yeah, I was trying to see if I could also share a screen like Arnold did, but I think
if you go to the bottom, there's a share screen icon. It's in the middle and it's green. And you should be able to just click that and it should work.
Oh, okay. Okay, so let me okay. 1 minute, please.
No problem.
Okay. Okay. Now, after our last meeting, colleague has come up with some strategies, and the strategy is what I want to share here. Let me do this. I think I'm having a little challenge trying to share.
And we're all having technological challenges today. It's on sort of on the Zoom screen. So when you can see people, if you hover over the
don't worry. Maybe I'll just speak to it instead of trying to share the screen, because I am having a little challenge trying to do that. Yeah. Like I said the other time, our strategy for now is to build colleague up to be something that is better than what it used to be. And so after going through the whole program, our new vision is to have a world of equal access to knowledge. And then our purpose now is to inspire state-of-the-art learning and professional excellence through the management and sharing of knowledge resources. This has really been our strategy or our ideas, but I think that through the Leading in the Library program and all the things that we went through, we've been able to concretize all these things that we are talking about. And we say that we now want to be a world leader, a global world leader when it comes to knowledge for development. And so we are strategizing now that by 2026, that is about roughly 10 years from now, CALIG will be a key player in national development. CALIG will be a source of inspiration for consortia globally. We will strengthen our advocacy and fundraising initiatives, especially to secure government support. For now, all our work is supported or funded by CALIG members. And yesterday we had a management meeting. One of the things that came up is the fact that we would want to secure some government support. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. Okay. So one of the things that we discussed yesterday is how we can get government support for CALIG advocacy and generally all the things that we do. And then I mentioned the other time that we are now strategizing to ensure that we have at least 90% of all tertiary and higher education institutions in Ghana being members of CALIG. And so we are trying hard and working hard at getting at that. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to do that. For us now, one of the key things is sustainability. We want CALIG to be a thriving organization. And yesterday at our management meeting, we discussed some of these issues. A few issues came up and we realized that there's a need for us to take certain actions to ensure that there's sustainability for CALIG. And then we also want to strengthen our advocacy. Advocacy for us now is not at its peak, but we believe that we can do better. I mean, there's always room for improvement. So we believe that we can do better. So we want to strengthen our collaboration with all our stakeholders, and as well as ensure that we have greater influence. And then also we want to improve the skills of our users, skills in terms of using the resources that we have. One of the issues that also came up is that you do all the things you're supposed to do, but the resources, some of the resources are not being used to the maximum level. Recently, there was the Miru program that was organized by INASP. We had a number of our people participating in it. That is the monitoring and evaluation of electronic resources program. I think it was also an online program. And so we discussed yesterday and thinking of ways by which we can get all the people who participated in Ghana to come together and see how we can encourage people to use the various resources that are available. I think basically that is it. I don't know if there's any other thing we can add. Maybe when some questions come, we should be able to add a few things.
Okay, thank you very much, Teresa. Can I just ask if anyone has any questions or comments at this point? You can just unmute yourself and just ask away. Or just write it in the box if you'd prefer.
I've got a question, Vanessa.
Okay.
So as part of the Leading in the Library process, one of the things that we did with the consortia that we worked with during phase 1 is to have a look at the existing strategy document. And often the strategy could have very many different strategic objectives. So for example, there could be 8 or 9 strategic objectives, high-level strategic objectives, and there could be 72 odd actions that sit under those strategic objectives. And a lot of the discussions that we've been having in the countries is, given that consortia are groups of volunteers who dedicate what spare time they have to the consortia but have day jobs, even an organization that had 5 to 10 permanent members of staff working full time would struggle with an ambitious strategic strategy like that, with eight objectives and 72 different actions. So one of the things that we tried to do in the Leading in the Library is to distill some of the kind of, what are the most important strategic objectives, and be kind to yourself when you're reviewing these. Don't necessarily see that it's a lack of commitment means that you can't do it. It might just be that you need to be realistic about what those strategic objectives are, and that they're possible to deliver. So it would be interesting to hear from people, some of their experiences of going through that process and whittling down the strategy document to 3 clear strategic objectives, which is what we were trying to do in the Leading in the Library phase 1. And I'd just like to hear whether other people felt that was a useful process, and any reflections they had.
Okay, so if anyone has anything to share on that, if you want to just unmute yourself.
Yeah, can I say something briefly?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that what Kemal said right now is very true. I think that one of the issues with CALIC then was that we had so many things we kind of literally had put on ourselves that we wanted to do. And one of the things we realized, or one of the issues, is that a lot of us were working basically on a voluntary basis. So after going through the Leading in the Library, at least the first phase of it, we kind of broke everything down, realized, we asked ourselves various questions, and then realized that we had set ourselves some tasks that were a bit too huge, too enormous for us. And so we tried to beat them down, and then we tried to compress things. And as it were, we became a bit more realistic. How realistically can we do these things within this time frame that we have? And I think that is how come we were able to come up with, especially for CALIC, we were able to come up with the 3 clear strategic objectives. I think I mentioned that is the sustainability, enhancing access to resources, and then the last one is the advocacy, and then marketing. Because if we are able to do these 3 things, then definitely we would be working towards achieving something great for CALIC. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Sugar. I'd be interested in hearing sorry, I think I've got a bit of an echo going on. I'd be interested in hearing if colleagues from CLISC, Zulk and Cool have the same experiences, particularly when it's CLISC as well, who haven't been involved in some of the face-to-face Leading in the Library work so far, and whether they feel that their strategy is a bit perhaps over-ambitious, or they have too many different objectives.
Yes, can I speak?
Yeah,
Edward,
go ahead.
from Zug. Yes, we had the same experience, and we realized that at times we were not able to implement some of the activities on time. Yeah, and for some you'd find at times you do shortcuts. But what we did in our case was that most of the strategies, we kind of married them to our everyday activities in our libraries. So it was a bit easier to overcome that challenge and ensure that when the council of directors meet, then they have reports of what they are doing, and the results in most cases were actually answering to the strategies that were there. That's why we were able to achieve 60%. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Any comments from anyone else?
Sorry, if I may come in one again. Thank you very much. I have got a question for Teresa, Adu. From her experience, from our side during the workshop, we realized that most of the information actually was residing with the directors, and did not filter down to the members at the grassroots. And we thought that was supposed to actually be turned around so that everybody could actually partake in Zug business. I don't know from Teresa if that was their situation, and how they have tried to correct that situation, and how do they reach their grassroots. Thank you.
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah, I think that when you talk about directors, you're talking about the heads of the various libraries. I believe that's what he's referring to.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay, in CALIC, the general council, the governing council, sorry, is made up of all the head librarians. And then apart from the head librarians, we also have e-resource librarians. And what we try to do is, information is given to both the head librarians and then the e-resource librarians. So the information is not supposed to sit with one person. And most of the time when information goes, we try to follow up to see whether the right people have received whatever information they're supposed to receive. But yes, there are times when occasionally some information is sent and it doesn't go down to the people at the grassroots. Yeah, but I think that following up on things that have gone out is one of the things you can do to correct some of these things. And then apart from that, responsibilities are given to individuals. And so if somebody is responsible for a particular thing, you follow up with the person as well as with the head librarian of the person involved. And then in addition to all this, one of the things that Nina does very well is that when she sends information, she copies other people. So for instance, information that is going to someone which may be relevant to others or others are supposed to know, she'll send information. Currently, Nina is our secretary. And so she sends information and then she will copy other members. And then if anyone has any reaction to anything that has been sent, that is done. I don't know if that is helpful. Edward?
Thank you very much, Teresa. That's very helpful. And I note from what you've just said, you do have a secretariat, which we don't have. I think we should actually be working on having a secretariat to try and minimize those communication problems. Thank you very much.
Can I say something else? Hello?
Yes, yeah. I can hear you.
Yeah. Yes, CALIC has a secretariat, but we do not have permanent staff in the secretariat. What CALIC does now, if you like, let me call the management committee the secretariat. CALIC has a management committee that runs the day-to-day affairs of CALIC. And so the management committee does the day-to-day thing and then reports to the governing council, which is the bigger group. So the management committee is just a few people. We have the management chair, the vice chair, the treasurer, the secretary, and then representatives from various groups in CALIC. We have a representative from the public universities. We have a representative from the private universities. We have a representative from what used to be the polytechnics. but now, they are now also technical universities, they call themselves. And then we also have a representative from non-academic institutions, research institutions, that's the name for them, the research institutions. And so this makes up the management committee. And so the management committee, as it were, is the secretariat of CALIC. And because it's a smaller group, it's easier for us to communicate amongst ourselves and to ensure that things that need to be done gets done.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm sure Zoo can take a leaf from what you have put in place. Thank you.
Thanks. We also have a question from Dan Bishop, who's asking what blue ocean initiatives do the consortia feel that they can do that other organisations are not currently doing in their respective countries. So this goes back to the presentation by Ian earlier on, where we talked about red oceans and blue oceans, and trying to make sure that you're doing initiatives that other organisations aren't doing, so that you're not competing so heavily. Does anyone have any thoughts about that? Maybe not. Maybe it's something to go away and think about. Perhaps Dan, you want to elaborate a bit more on that, and then perhaps people can go away and think about this later on.
Yeah, thanks, Vanessa. I don't really want to elaborate on it. I just think it's an important question for the consortium to consider, and I'm pretty certain from the work I've been doing with Cool that everyone does have unique things that they're doing, but it would be great if those could be highlighted and maybe shared between the consortiums just to spur people on. They do exist, and but you know, the more we can share and get that mindset going, I think it would be really helpful.
Thanks, Dan. Okay, well, if we don't have anything on this right now, that can be something we follow up with later on, and hopefully people will have a think about this. I think it is a really important question. So I guess we're up to, we've got about 15 minutes left, just under that. So I might hand over to Lorna now, who's going to talk about moving strategy from paper into action. So Lorna, if you want to take over.
Thank you, thank you. So I'm going to talk about 8 steps for doing this, which is converting strategy on paper into action. And I think we're all very familiar with organisations who write a strategy and then it's almost put to bed until the next time that you have to write another one. So this is very much about trying to bring it alive. And the 8 points I'm going to talk about were initially developed by somebody called John Cotter. And they seem to last the test of time, so I'm going to go through those one by one. The first one is conviction, and that might sound very obvious, but in converting any strategy into action, what you really have to do is have people all going in the right direction, in the same direction. So aligning the organisation in terms of what people believe in and what you're actually doing. So obviously in our sector, very much values drive people, and it's just really being sure that people really understand the why of what you're doing and put themselves behind it. So that's the first one. The second one is having the right people, and we often use an expression, having the right people on the bus. And what that means is having the right people with the right passion to do what you're trying to do. And I think Edward mentioned about the Caplor house and the 4 rooms. And I think sometimes organisations, if they don't analyse where people are in the different rooms of the organisation, you can find that organisations have most of their members in one room. And I think sometimes it's about looking at the kind of skills and strengths, because it's not just skills, but it's strengths and attitudes that you need in the organisation to deliver what your strategy says, to make it effective. So if everyone, for example, is in the observatory with really great ideas, but there's no one there actually encouraging people to get on board or doing the planning to make strategy happen, then you're really going to not achieve very much. So it's having the right people to achieve what you're trying to. And I suppose related to that is having the right strategy. So if you have all the people that with a great passion for something, you need to know where you're driving the bus to. So it's about being really clear about what your strategy is and how that different levels of the organisation is embedded, so everyone knows what their place is in order to achieve going to the same place. The next step is communicating the strategy. Again, it's often developed by a few people, and not all the volunteers and people in the organisation are as familiar as others. So it's really about finding creative ways to enable everyone in the organisation or the consortium to understand what the strategy is and what part they play. So it's bringing it down from the very theoretical into practical activities. The next point is about identifying obstacles. So with the best plan in the world, sometimes there's things that hinder you achieving what you're trying to. And I think from my experience of being involved with the consortium, you know, two main things have come out. One is resources in terms of money and funding, say, to employ a secretariat or deliver the work that you're trying to. And the other one is resources in terms of people's time. And again, it's about identifying what those obstacles are and then trying to be creative about how you overcome them. So just knowing what they are isn't quite enough. You have to also just think about how you can do things differently to overcome what they are. And planning short-term wins. Most strategies are probably between 3 and 5 years long, and it's a long time to be working at something when you're not quite sure if you're achieving anything. So the idea of having short-term wins, things that are easily achievable and you can celebrate within the consortium, really help keep the motivation up. If you get to the end of 5 years and only then do you start celebrating your successes, I think people will fade away. So again, it's identifying the short-term wins and making sure that across all the aspects of the organisation or the consortium, that people really take part in celebrating those successes. Ensuring no complacency. It's easy in some organisations, I think, to go with those who have the loudest voice or seem to be doing the most things, and there's often room for people to sit back and be carried a bit. However, if you structure things in a way that people really feel motivated to be involved, then people won't be complacent and will keep to the mission and the vision of what you're trying to achieve. And the final point is embed in the culture. And again, strategists can say, you know, have the most inspiring things they're trying to achieve. But if the culture doesn't allow that to happen, then there's a bit of a mismatch. And I was with an organisation earlier this week, and what was interesting was they had great aspirations in their strategy about openness and honesty and integrity and all of those great things. However, the culture didn't reflect that. The culture was very much about a hierarchical, top-down culture where people felt afraid to speak up. So again, it's about matching what you're trying to achieve with the culture in which you work, and those really need to be aligned for people to fully get behind what you're trying to do. So that's a very quick run through of Kotter's 8 steps. And just to finish, I think coming back to one of the points Ian made earlier, which in terms of developing a strategic mindset always seems really critical. And that's do the best at what you're best at for the benefit of others. And I think really playing to people's strengths, finding out what they are, enabling other people to find out what their own strengths are, and really giving people the space to develop those strengths and deliver on those strengths for the benefit of others. If that's the only thing you remember, I think that's a really critical, important thing to achieve what you're trying to. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Lorna. Does anyone, we've only got about 5 minutes left, but does anyone have any comments or questions? Like I said in the chat box, we'll make sure that we share all of these slides afterwards.
Hello.
Oh, hello.
Yeah, I think I like the last bit about it. These are, and thank you, Lorna, for sharing these with us. I think that the last point she made, I think is something that we may all have to take home, that we should do the best at we should do the best at what we are best at for the benefit of others. We might not all be doing this as a paid job, but I think we are doing quite well. In fact, if we've been able to carry our various consortia to this level on a voluntary basis, then I think that we are doing very well. And I think that we can do better. And then we will do our best, just like Lorna said. So we will try and do the best we can, so that maybe posterity after us would know and see that something good has been done for them. Yeah, it's something I've taken note of.
Thank you. If I could just come back to you on that and just say, I think you're all doing such a great job, and as volunteers, I applaud you all, because I think what you're doing is fantastic. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, just to echo that, I think that's a really inspirational and fantastic way to end this webinar, and it's a great note to end on. And I think it is really good to recognise all the success that is happening in all of the countries that we're working with a team of volunteers in each group is doing tremendous work. So I think that's a good point to take away. So just before we leave, I've got a short poll to pop up on your screens. So it's just some feedback on the webinar today. I realise we've had some technical problems, which can't be helped. But if you'd like to just pop in your thoughts, it's completely anonymous. And you can just share what you thought about today. Okay, I think about everybody has done now, so I'm just going to end that, and then I can just share. I should be able to just share the results with you all. So this is what we thought today. Most people thought the discussions are very useful. Some people somewhat useful. That it's a very appropriate platform, which is good to know, despite technical problems, that we all still agree that it's quite an appropriate platform for sharing. And everyone is very interested in joining the next webinar. So that's really good. So we'll be sending out more information on that shortly. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it from today. So thank you very much. Really enjoyed hearing from all of you, and thanks for all your contributions.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you very much.
Bye, Lorna.
Bye. Great to speak to you.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to end the meeting now, so just so you know. Bye-bye.